Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay. Truly a pleasure having you on Brand Equity.
It's an absolute pleasure to be in the studio with you and here in India.
So I have a lot to cover, but I want to start first with the most controversial aspect of digital media that hit us, a few days ago. I'm talking about really the YouTube catastrophe with, questionable content being seen alongside, advertising content, and of course, a lot of people taking offense to it. What is your take on it, and how are you advising your clients who seem to be apprehensive or anxious about, how their ads are being viewed, juxtaposing with what content?
Catastrophe is a big word, so I won't describe it as a catastrophe. I think brand safety has been an issue for a very long time. So we recommend as Group M and as Maxus, Mindshare, MEC and Mediacom that all our clients employ brand safety tagging technology, third-party technology, which means that the chances of appearing next to questionable content are very, very slim. And of course, as Group M, we also have our own blacklists, and we create whitelists, and we have private marketplaces where that content won't be shown. So I do think we as an industry need to do as much as we can to protect, because the sad truth is people will put questionable content up online because the World Wide Web is open and people can put content up, and the way of screening the amount of content that goes up every single second, it's something horrendous, like 400,000 videos go up every minute of every day. So I think what is clear to me is that the current way that YouTube in particular classifies those ads and the speed at which it can do it means that some of them slip through the net, and it's a very, very, very small percentage. But it is unfortunate because when you have governments advertising, you have big brands, you don't want to put your reputation at risk. So we do everything we can to ensure that clients don't appear next to questionable content.
So you're saying there's no real solution to it?
At the moment, I think the algorithms are pretty sophisticated. We tick for every campaign, we tick any type of category that we don't want to appear next to that content.
But then how did it happen?
Because so much content is uploaded, the algorithms can't understand or interpret what the ad is, what the content is truly saying. So it gets miscategorized.
Okay.
So I would suggest that you could employ humans as well as machines and algorithms to maybe look at that content and to try and help. And I think Google are looking at it very seriously. What we didn't do as Group M is jump in and unilaterally pull our clients off the platform because YouTube is a very important platform, and Google is a very important partner for lots of our clients, and they are very, very small amounts of ads that creep through. So we need to just do everything we can to ensure they don't happen. Some of our clients have paused their activity, and some of them haven't.
Okay, but for instance, Havas has made public statements about the fact that they are pulling out of YouTube completely. We heard about governments and other organizations in the UK also pulling out. So the reaction, you've actually kind of mellowed it down, the entire thing, but the reaction seems to be a lot harsher than your reaction. Why do you think? So are you saying they're overreacting?
I think they're absolutely well within our rights to pause activity. So I would use the word pause rather than pulling. So we have definitely paused activity for some of our clients. Some of them are happy to be public, some of them are not happy to be public about it. The government, of course, doesn't want to be associated with it. Nobody wants to be associated with that content. But I think what we need to do is work together with Google to put pressure on them to try and help them come up with a solution. Let's not forget who surfaced the story. So it was the Times of London, who is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Who's taking revenue from Rupert Murdoch at the moment?
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Digital players.
That's a very good point.
So there are journalists and journalists do a fabulous job, as you do, whose job is to go and search out for those instances where questionable content is. So there just are, I think there are lots of things happening.
Fair enough. I also want to talk to you about, our landscape, our world landscape today, and how it's actually impacted media agencies such as yours. For instance, I want to talk about Brexit and the presidential elections. And how has life changed for you at all, or has it remained constant?
I think I was lucky enough to go to Davos this year for the World Economic Forum, and Brexit was dominating the conversation. So I live in London. I voted to remain. Most of London voted to remain. So from a business perspective, WPP didn't put out a statement, but Martin Stoll at a personal level talked about why we felt it was important to remain in the European Union. But the fact is, We are going to exit. It will be issued next week by Theresa May. It will then take 2 years of hard negotiation to work out what that really means. So what that's meant for the UK and across Europe, both for our clients and for us, is uncertainty. And that's really the crux of it, because the whole campaign was conducted on fear and lack of and ignorance, actually, about what would happen if we left the EU. So that is challenging from a European perspective. And then the Trump election just really depresses me. It depresses me as a business person, it depresses me as a sane person, it depresses me as a woman in particular, with the comments and the way that he's behaved. I think you've got to hope, or the hope has always been that he's going to surround himself with good, sane, rational people, but I'm not sure I'm not sure that's happening either. So we are dealt with those cards. We have to make the best Brexit we can, and we have to see how President Trump settles into his role, and how he maybe begins to modify his behaviour and actions.
What is the brass tacks impact on, let's say, business and media agencies in particular?
I'm not sure we've seen the impact yet of Trump from a business perspective. There's been a short-term, I think within America, American-owned companies are feeling reasonably positive about it. They're being put under pressure to bring manufacturing and more sourcing within America itself, because it's America first. So that can be challenging for some international clients, but might actually be quite good for some of our American clients. So I think there's just probably a hesitancy and a conservatism and a kind of let's wait and see. And I think a challenge we may have from a broader business perspective with both Brexit and with Trump is that there's just more cautiousness, and within that maybe could be more consolidation. You know, the bid for Unilever by Kraft was really unexpected, and I think maybe there could be more consolidation in the market, which will then mean more pressure on pricing and on suppliers, and that would make us slightly nervous.
So would you say, if you had to look at marketing spends for 2017, do you think they will be, more contracted than let's say 2016?
No, I think we will still see growth. I think we'll see growth of around 3.5%. So not huge levels of growth, but still reasonable growth. And actually India within that is still one of the stronger growing markets. I mean, we have been seeing in the past growth levels here of around 15%. We had a 15% prediction for India last year, which actually came down to about 12% this
demonetization.
year. Yeah, we have a 10% prediction this year, which seems slow for India, but it's pretty good compared to the rest of the world. And there are other mature markets. Actually, at the moment, the UK is looking all right from our perspective. So actually, of the BRICS, India is still the shining star. But I think overall, we're hoping for about 3.5% increase in advertising expenditure.
But would you say, I know you're in India right now, so it will be difficult for you to make an extremely objective and candid statement. But do you think the spotlight is slowly moving away from, markets such as India and China, Russia, Brazil, and is moving towards, greener ventures like Africa, other parts of Asia like Vietnam, Indonesia, because, there seems to be just more potential there?
I think Indonesia is a very high growth, high potential market, the same for Vietnam. I mean, Africa is still probably the biggest opportunity, but also the biggest challenge. It's the great unknown, and actually trying to get people to go and run a business in Nigeria is still challenging. So I would say of the BRICS, India is still definitely the shining star, but WPP as a whole has always been very bullish on China, despite wobbles, and I think we're in it for the long term.
You've talked a lot about zero-based marketing and zero-based budgeting, and how that's going to impact the way clients decide where they want to spend, and hence in turn you. When did this whole shift take place?
I think it began to be used probably only around 18 months ago.
Okay.
It's still quite an American phrase, and I think people are beginning to test it out and beginning to use it, but I'm not sure that many people are actually using it. I think P&G and Union have already started talking about it. I mean, it makes sense in a world of caution, in a world of slower growth. We haven't seen it massively impact us yet, and I think what we need to do is just make sure that we have more and more evidence and more, be clear on the attribution of what media is working, be clear on the ROI of marketing. And as long as we are learning and measuring and being able to attribute marketing success, then zero-based budgeting we shouldn't be fearful of it if we can prove the results of what marketing activity does.
For debate's sake, when you say, because it will be your job to prove that it's working.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is today, more and more advertisers are pretty unclear about, how they're spending their money. And my case in point would be the big grand statements we heard from Mark Pritchard earlier this year. So it is quite evident that while there is money being invested in newer and newer platforms, one is not very sure how that's actually panning out. So a lot of it is done on good faith, because of the problems of walled gardens and the fact that ad fraud and bot fraud and all of that is becoming so big. Do you see, when you foresee the future, do you see at some point a complete collapse of the digital ecosystem as we know it today?
I think there are many challenges with the digital ecosystem and with the integrity of the marketplace, and there are lots of issues and they all get slightly muddled. So the word transparency, viewability, verification, fraud, some of them are criminal offences, so ad fraud is a criminal offence, non-human traffic is a criminal offence. Viewability is an issue that the industry just needs to sort out, and it's something that, really what Mark was talking about were viewability standards. The viewability standards he called for were the MRC recommended standards, which actually Group M don't believe are strong enough. They're pretty good, but they're not actually good. We believe that a video should be entirely viewable and should be seen for at least 50% of the time. It should be chosen to play and it should have the sound on. Having a video, so one of the challenges is, not that you can't measure things, but the way things are measured are entirely different across all of those walled gardens and across the ecosystems. And I think as our world has become more complex, maybe we haven't been, as media owners and as agencies, super clear with marketeers on exactly how each of them work. And in the old days, we could talk about reach and frequency and cost per rating points and very common language across traditional media channels. When people moved to a digital world, because we could track things, because we could measure stuff, we rushed off and measured things. And then when we got more sophisticated and added in cookies and tagging and brand safety technology, we realised that actually what we thought we were paying for wasn't there. So I just think it's a muddle of issues, and I think the responsibility is on both the marketeers and the agencies to truly understand what the aim and the objective of the campaign is, and therefore measure it in the appropriate way.
Would you say that Google and Facebook are somewhat arrogant because of the fact that they command most of the market by not listening to the advertisers crying out the fact that they need more transparent measurement?
Well, I wouldn't call them arrogant because we are very good partners with both Google and Facebook. They are in they're in a very strong and enviable position, and they should use that position wisely. When Facebook has been finding its issues in how videos are being served and how it did at least come public on them and has gone back in and it found additional issues with how it was tracking video technology, and again it came clean on it, and I think that transparency is good. Google, with the current YouTube challenges, are certainly saying that they will be looking into what else they can do. I mean, what neither has done is come fully out.
Why do you think they are not coming out?
I think there are probably business reasons, and there are also probably technical reasons. It is very challenging to monitor and to categorize the sheer volume of content that appears on those two platforms. Facebook has 1 billion daily users, Messenger and WhatsApp also have 1 billion daily users, Instagram has 600 million daily users, and Google has over 7 apps with 1 billion daily users. So I think there is a challenge over size, but I think that the stance is softening, and we saw that with after the election we were just talking about, the Trump election, where the initial reaction of Mark Zuckerberg to the suggestion that Facebook was somehow partly responsible because of the distribution of fake news was initially not my problem, and then actually changed to a much more considered view, saying actually we need to work out how to look at this together. So I think they are beginning to take on more responsibility and almost act like country leaders rather than corporations, which is a whole nother topic.
I'm very interested now in how, for instance, a media agency's revenues are currently distributed through different streams. So if you had to tell me your cut between, let's say, traditional, digital, and other areas that media agencies have started exploring as other revenue streams, how would that pie look?
Gosh, that's a big question, and it's very different by market. Here in India, Maxus offers many diversified services. So actually, the traditional media planning and buying, and how we would earn money, so either FTEs or commission, is probably, let's say, only about 60–70% of our revenue, because we have 45 creatives, digital creatives, so we earn a lot of money in creating digital creative content, dynamic creative content. We have a large content division who work to create branded content like the Tata Tiago tripling series, and we also have a large data and analytics team who are producing and installing in clients like Vodafone and in L'Oreal data command centres with multiple screens tracking all of the online activity.
So you're saying
30% is probably comes from those growth areas of digital, creative content, technology, and data.
And 60% will be traditional.
Traditional media planning and buying.
But when you say traditional, you mean just offline?
Oh no. I mean I just mean traditional media planning and buying, and then within that traditional media planning and buying, again, it varies by market. I mean, here in India, digital spend itself is still quite low. It's your share of digital is only about 13–14%. So we would be a bit more digital than that due to our client makeup. In some markets, mature markets like the UK and the US and China, over 50% of that traditional media planning and buying will be digital.
Wow, okay. So if you look at Maxus globally, would you say that you've now managed a healthy 50–50 split?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about a time of peak complexity, so 50% online, 50% offline, and then within online, the majority of online spend now is mobile, and then within that, when you slice down again, we're moving to a more programmatic world. So we talk about everything. The good news is it will never be as complex
well, we
as it is
so.
now. I hope.
So when you say mobile, that's interesting. Now, mobile again has no currency for measurement.
It has different currencies. So the challenge is, and this is where walled gardens and unique IDs are so important, because on my mobile phone, you don't know that it's Lindsay browsing versus Lindsay in an app. And actually, so the challenge really, and really where we're all seeking first mover advantage, and certainly within Group M, we're building this up substantially, is we want to create our own unique IDs, which will be a mix of, which will be probabilistic ID. So they'll use a mix of data sources to identify that it's me, the individual, so I can then serve and track across different devices. So you can on mobile, it's just not as easy as normal online.
So when you say there's a 50–50 split, would you say for a media agency it is more traditional media is more profitable than digital media?
No, I mean, it varies. Sometimes digital is very labour intensive. TV can be sometimes easier to spend big chunks of money in one go, but obviously we reduce down the amount of people it requires to do that. So there's no real rule of thumb. It's more expensive to staff up around digital because it takes more time and more technology needs to be added. If
you include that and do your costing, then would you say, as a profit center, traditional media buying for offline is more profitable?
Not really, because we charge a lower commission for traditional than we do for digital.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh wow. When did that switch happen?
It's broadly been when digital started, it was always at the height. Digital's been coming down, but there's a level of commission below which it makes no economic sense to spend money in digital. And clients recognise that. It is standard. Maybe no one talks about it. And I'm certainly not going to tell you what the commission rates are.
I just want to move away from media for a bit and talk to you about being a woman CEO.
Yeah.
I know it's a question that a lot of people would have asked you. But I think it's relevant because I think we have only 2 global CEOs within the WPP group, and very few globally. My question to you is, how easy was your growth chart? I mean, how much did you have to push to break that glass ceiling to get to where you are?
Well, I'm probably the same amount as you. And I think, I mean, for me, I'm not sure gender was ever a massive issue, because I was lucky I was brought up as the youngest of 4 children. The youngest of 4 always is going to be the pushy, the loud, the one that grows up quicker and has to shout louder than the others in order to be heard. And I've always been ambitious, and hopefully as long as you're good at your job, if your ambition outstrips your ability, then then that's not helpful. But I think that women sometimes need a bit of extra encouragement, and they either need it for themselves, because we do have sometimes self-limiting behaviours where we hold ourselves back, and one of the great things about Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg's book, which is now I think 4 or 5 years old, is it gave empirical evidence to show that women walk this tightrope of wanting to be liked, and if you're liked, you're not seen as competent. If you're competent, you're not necessarily liked, and we always kind of want both things. So, and a woman will only apply for a job when she can do 9 out of 10 attributes, and bloke will apply when he can do 3. So they just, so I think that was helpful, because it showed you that you're not the only person that feels that way. So I think there are internal challenges, but there are also external barriers. There are societal, there are cultural barriers, there's inherent unconscious bias towards women, and there's the fact that only women can physically still have children, last time I checked. So, you know, we do see women who choose to have a family, they then have to make sometimes a hard choice, because the expectation is that the mother will stay at home and care for the child, or will be in charge of the arrangements, which might mean she needs more flexible working conditions to come back. And I think we need to get much better at supporting mums and supporting dads, and allowing dads to go on paternity leave as well as mums, and sharing the load. And we need to be better at flexible working arrangements that allow people to be, you know, to be a caregiver as well as a business person. There's
also, I mean, I know Sheryl Sandberg believes that you can have both. You can be like this really ambitious career woman who's, you know, giving all the men a run for their money, and can also be a super homemaker. But there is also a contra view to that, which is Indra Nui's view, who says that, you know, choose, you can't be both. So between both those views, which is one is very optimistic a bit, and another one I think would be more realistic. What is your view?
I am glass half full, so I will always be optimistic, because I think there is a bit of mind over matter. I mean, I think you just have to work out what is your true ambition, and what do you really want to do, and what's going to make you happy. And if making you happy is working 4 days a week and being a brilliant mum on a Friday, then talk to your employer. And if you're a brilliant, you know, colleague and employee, then maybe you can go and negotiate that for your salary. It is always going to be not a balance, but a blend of work and life. But I think the men need to step up. If the dads will do the drop-off for childcare, or do the pick-up, or choose to work more flexibly, then actually it shouldn't be...
And do you see that mindset change happening?
We are beginning to see it. So in the UK, we now offer 26 weeks paid leave for either a mum or a dad.
Oh, wow.
And actually we've had our first dad take the full 6 months, and he's now come back and is working a 4-day week rather than a 5-day week. I mean,
so would that impact his career?
No. He's a great guy. I'd rather have him back 4 days a week being brilliant than have someone who's rubbish 5 days a week. And the same would go for someone 3 days a week as well. We actually have a colleague here in India who works on one of our Bangalore clients, who is a single mum. She couldn't seem to make it work with childcare, so she now works actually 4 days a week from home and 1 day in the office. So I think we just need more flexibility and a bit more human empathy and a bit more sharing between men and women, which I don't think is unrealistic to ask for.
Just moving into, you know, a hot topic, I think, which has now come to the fore when it comes to media and advertising, is I want your view on how difficult is it, are advertisers having this conversation with you on where you should advertise and where you should not. And here I'm really talking about, let's say, you know, publications or channels that are possibly a little bit over the top, or may not have the same kind of leaning that you have.
Yeah, same values.
Exactly.
As you. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. So actually, when we were having conversations with some of our clients in the UK, when the Times first reported on some of the big brands' fun terror front pages 3 weeks ago, we went talked to all the CEOs and just assured them what we were doing and what tagging they had in place and what whitelists they had and the fact they hadn't appeared. But it did then allow some CEOs to have a conversation to say, and how about do we appear on Breitbart is the most commonly used
Exactly.
example. So the conversation with that particular client was actually some of our US clients had asked us in advance to blacklist that site or sites like that, but it is a question of free speech.
Exactly.
So just because you disagree with Breitbart or you disagree with, you know, maybe with the Daily Mail or with the Times of London or Times of India, you disagree with that particular political point of view, doesn't mean that they are illegal. You're just choosing to not associate with them. So if you want to make that choice, then we will blacklist them.
But finally, it's just reaching audience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at it like that.
Yeah, but context, I believe context is really important.
You do? Okay.
I really believe. And if I was in charge of a brand, I would be very particular on where my ads appeared, rather than blindly chasing Lindsay. Lindsay on site X, Y, and Z is in a very different mindset. So I want Lindsay when she's in X mindset, because that's when I'm going to buy or be receptive to your brand message or your product.
Is it?
Context is king.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
This was truly, truly very
Thank you.
interesting.